Creating a painted, layered, textured piece is one of my favorite things to do, and it's really not difficult, although the end result can look quite complicated. So this little journal here, you can see I've got all kinds of fun little details and accents on it, and it's really just a couple of steps. So I'm excited to show you here in this lesson just how you can do something like this. Now, it does work best on some type of book or some type of cover, or on a wood block or on a canvas. You want something sturdy for this. So that is one thing about this. Although I will tell you individually, some of these elements or some of these techniques can be used on absolutely any product, any project you want, just like every lesson here in this class. So to begin with, I have a Dilutions art journal. These are a lot of fun, and if I'm gonna be doing experiments and playing inside, it's always fun to decorate the cover. Now these journals do have an elastic band that keeps them closed. I do find that very important. In designing this, what I've decided is that I will work below and that I will do this and open and close it above. So that's the first step, deciding how you want to decorate. The second step is we're going to take some modeling paste and we're going to take a stencil. Now this is a little different because we're not going for perfection, we're also going really light. So what I'm gonna do is scrape some paste across there and lift. We're going for very, very light. Look how that's just a very, very small amount there. We're going for light and we're going for just pieces of the stencil. We're not going for all over. And you can do this as many times as you like, scraping so that the stencil is practically clean after each use. And once you're satisfied, if there's any on the edge, you'll want to go ahead and remove that. You'll also want to clean off your stencil. If you have extra paste, you can put it back in. It should be just fine. And then we don't have to wait for anything to dry. We can go right ahead and get into our embellishings. So I have, this seems like the perfect kit of embellishments from my 28 lane line to be using on a craft book, on an art journal, on a sketchbook. It's called So Crafty, and I've got a little sewing machine, I've got some little scissors, I've got great embellishments in here for this kind of a project. Little beads, little sequins, buttons, even some trim. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and adhere things down with adhesive. Now for this design, I want to keep the design fairly simple. I don't want to go really wild on this, only because such a big cover, I want to make a small cluster, just something where I can put some letters and I can put some elements down. I'm going to start with my trim and put my trim down where I would like it, not all the way across, just part of the way. And I don't need a ton of adhesive. However, this is a project where we're going to want to use adhesive across anywhere that we're actually going to place things. Once you've adhered your trim, you can trim off any excess and then continue to place your embellishments. Now, if you would like, you can take some letters. These are foam thickers. You can use any letters that you like. You are going to want to add liquid adhesive to them. You're going to want to do that because while the adhesive on the stickers is adequate for, say, a card or scrapbook page, the cover of a book is going to take a lot more abuse. The cover of a book is going to take a lot more stuff is going to be going on, so you're going to want to make extra sure that these things are going to stay put. Okay, once that is down, we're going to arrange other little embellishments here. And I like to make things in kind of a little, just a bit of a little cluster here. So I'll kind of arrange a few key elements and see what I like. And then once I'm happy with them, I'll add some liquid adhesive and set them down. And once those are set, then I move into other embellishments, such as beads, buttons, just other things that I think are pretty, that I think will go with my theme. And don't worry about the colors. If the colors are not colors that you particularly like, or maybe you have some stuff that you want to use up, not all of these colors are going to show through. So please do feel free to use what you've got, especially on a project like this, because a lot of these things will be covered with paint very soon, as you will see. I'm going to add a couple of sequins just for a little different texture. I'll add a little pearl. This project is so much fun. And you know, honestly, if I could do these all day long, I really would, because it's a lot of fun to see it come together, and it's a little different. The styling, as you'll see, the styling of it is a little bit different when you get to painting over things. Now, once you are satisfied that all of your embellishments are in place, now notice that we went over the paste, but the paste did not get affected. That's why I really like working with pastes that are really light. They dry really fast, and it's really good for something like this where if I scrubbed with my finger, I could make it mess up, I could make it bleed and blend. But if I just am setting things on top, I can immediately begin work, and I always like when I don't have to wait. Unfortunately, we're at the point now where this is going to need to dry, and it is going to need to fully dry, so you really can't use a heat tool to speed it up. That will cause potentially some bubbling depending on your adhesive, and potentially it will seem dry, but underneath the adhesive would still be wet. So we just need to give this a bit of time. Once everything is dry, or in this case, there's a few spots where the adhesive is still a little bit liquid, but as long as I'm careful, it should be fine. Once everything is dry, you're going to want to take black paint and apply it all over. You don't need very much. In fact, it should really dry quickly. I like to work one section at a time and just add a little more as needed. It's almost instantly drying as I apply it. And that's what we want. We don't need a really heavy coating. We just want a nice light coat here. And with the textured areas, you may want to apply several times. You may want to work in a circular motion. You don't have to have a very full coverage, but exactly how full your coverage is going to be, exactly how you end up using the paint, whether you want a very thick layer or a very thin layer, that is going to be artistic choice. You can decide what you think looks best, what you think looks nice, and what works for you. I like to make sure that there are no really hard, what I would describe as a hard spot that's uncovered, meaning just it's like that, where there's just a big hole in the middle. We don't want anything like that. We just want it to be all over. And we are not going to concern ourselves with perfect or there's mess. This is an art journal, which means it's going to be filled with creative experiments. It's going to get messy. It's going to be thrown around my studio. It's going to become quite the mess in and of itself. So we don't worry ourselves with if it's just so. We're just going to have some fun with this. And you know, when you let go of the idea of what if it's not just so, what if it turns out wrong, if you just let go of that and have some fun, you're going to find you like your results a whole lot more. I am coating most things in black paint now. As we get down to here, I've got a little bit of paper towel. When I paint over my sewing machine, I am going to go ahead and paint over it. However, I'm immediately going to dab it with paper towel, and what that's going to do is going to give me, some of the black paint will still stay there, but it's going to give me kind of an antiqued look. And I'm also going to do that on my little scissors here, where I will dab off some of that black paint to expose the metal. But in the little nooks and crannies there, it will stick, and I absolutely love this effect. I love it because it gives such an interesting look to my projects, and it just adds, it's going to add an overall depth as we move along. Now, if we wanted to add anything else, this would be the time to do it, although you could also add at the end, depending on what you're trying to add in. But as you can see, this is already mostly dry. I mean, this is such a nice thin coat of paint that it's already quickly drying. So if we want to add something else, here are some Tim Holtz charms that from the Ideology line. I really like the little heart, and I really like a little wand and the little heart. So if I would like to add these in, and I think I would, I'm just going to get a little bit of adhesive, liquid adhesive, and add that right on in. Now it won't have the black paint on it, and that's okay. Not everything has to. You can add and create new layers at any point. Now the black paint, once dry, it is going to be set. It's not going to interact with anything else that we do. We will, though, want to give it a chance to fully dry. And at this point, if you have a heat tool and you want to speed things along a little bit, You can gently heat just a little bit in the spots that are being maybe a little tricky. Maybe your paint was a little bit thick. Maybe you just want to be certain that everything is set and dry. You can absolutely use it at this point for that. Now it gets really fun. Now we're gonna add color by having the black background first. What we're gonna do now is put some color, and we'll want it off to the side. We won't want it directly on our project. And we're going to pick up a paintbrush. I like a nice big paintbrush, and dry. It's not wet, dry paintbrush. We're gonna dip, just barely touch into there until there's just a little bit of paint, and then on the mat, tap. Then we can come in here and begin tapping or brushing, depending on what you like. If there's too much paint, don't worry about it, just start over, because the worst case scenario, if I just put way too much paint on here, worst case scenario is I repaint the black and start over. There isn't any messing up here. You can't ruin your project. Just have some fun. You can try different strokes if you would like to go a little more, if you want stroke lines, if you want it to be streaky, if you want color to magically look like it's seemingly magically appearing out of nowhere, you can do that. You can try a bunch of different colors. And if you get a little more color than you had wanted at some point, please don't worry about it, because if that happens, you can always, again, you can cover it back up with black if you'd like. You can do a lot of different things here. I'm gonna add some more color here, and once again, I can use a bit of paper towel and dab if there are metal elements that I want some of that shiny silver to come through, or just kind of layer it a bit more. I can do that. This is a lot of fun. I like blues and greens with this, but you could really try any color. I do find it to work the best when you go with either a white, or I usually prefer the black background first, then add color in. And I'll show you, this is the reason why I say that. I did this whole thing in a hot pink, then I went to add black. Now, it's okay, but what I found was it was hard to get the right amount of color to show through when the color was down first. It was harder than if I had done color after putting the neutral base down. It's much easier to control exactly how much color we're getting, exactly what we're doing. I've got the acrylic paint that I've got here where I'm going, look at how much fun that is. Oh, you can tap, if you can see how if I tap really hard, I'm getting kind of more speckly lines. I could also use my paper towel to get texture. I can also add other colors. In this instance, I want to add a little bit gold paint, and I'm going to pour it right out there. And I'm going to continue to use the same brush. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to tap here. This mat is very forgiving. And I'm just going to tap, pick it up, and then pick what spots I want to have a little bit of that sparkle. Look at what a difference and how quickly the sparkle makes a difference. It just adds so much so quick. Now, if you need to, you could always add little flecks of water. You could always, and look how much that adds. I mean, I haven't even reset my brush yet, just by going like so. We've got all this fun golden sparkle. These Sparks paints, I tell you, they are a lot of fun. And we can tap a little more firmly in areas where we want more color, go a little lighter where you want less. If you go through and you go, oh goodness, I did too much of the gold, I wish I had more green, pick up more green and add more green or add more black. There isn't any set rules here. And remember, we can always take our paper towel and tap to kind of mat and touch that up. We always have a lot of great options here in the creative process. And I always think it is a lot of fun to see what will happen. How will it turn out this time? Because it always turns out a little bit different depending on the weather, depending on how firmly I'm pressing down on the brushes, depending on what elements I use. There's always different elements that will change. There's always different elements that each time I create, it'll be a little different. And reminder, you can always come back if it gets a little too bright, or if you want to add a little more darkness, dip into that black paint and pull a little more on. You can layer as much as you like. You might notice I just did the one color and the metallic. You can blend different colors. I would recommend though, if you're gonna blend different colors, blend them from if not the same color, a very similar color. So for example, orange and yellow, blue and green. I find that this works best when you're limiting your colors and not going for a full rainbow. You could certainly try for a full rainbow, but it's a little more difficult to really make it work, to really make it look the way you want it to. We could play here all day long with this. This is so much fun. And as soon as it's dried, it's ready for me to fill up with creative experiments. I just love how this is turning out. Here you can see another one. So much fun, just a little stencil, little color, and results that I can now enjoy filling up my book with and really having a great creative time.